Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Out of the Fog. Chef Todd Perrin has become a household name here in our community. He's the chef and owner of Mallard Cottage in Quidi Vidi Village. It's an 18th century Irish Newfoundland cottage, which is now a National Historic Site of Canada, as it's one of the oldest wooden buildings in North America. Now, Perrin certainly isn't new to the restaurant industry, but it was in 2011 that he received national attention as he was one of the contestants on the first season of the Canadian reality competition show Top Chef Canada. Now, it was then that Todd Perrin, along with his wife Kim Doyle and sommelier Stephen Lee, purchased the cottage and started a huge restoration project that has brought life back into the small fishing village. Tonight, Todd Perrin joins me for the full show to talk about Mallard Cottage, but we also find out more about him, where his passion for cooking came from, and did he always want to be a chef? Plus, Perrin isn't stopping at Mallard Cottage. They're now moving towards redeveloping the former Flake House restaurant, which sits right by the water. Now, we're going to take a very short break, hear a word from our sponsors, but we'll be right back with Chef Todd Perrin. Stay with us. Welcome back to Out of the Fog. Well, before the break, we were telling you a bit about chef and owner of Mallard Cottage, Todd Perrin, and he joins me now in studio for the entire show tonight so we can get to know the man behind a restaurant that has certainly put a buzz back into what was a thriving community. Quidi Vidi. Todd, welcome. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
I should say welcome back because I think we had you in a number of years ago, as you were doing Top Chef Canada.
Yeah, 5 or 6 years ago, I guess now, so It's been a while.
So a lot has changed within that time.
You could say that, yeah. You could say that.
So before we get into, Mallard Cottage and everything that you're doing down in Quidi Vidi, I'm just curious, when you're in school in kindergarten or, in school in general, and the teachers ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? Was chef always the top of mind for you? No,
it wasn't for me. It kind of came to me later in life. I had gone to university after I graduated high school, and I was a pretty good student in high school, and kind of everybody was expecting that I was going to go on to university and become a doctor or a lawyer or a business student or something like that. And I went to university and I really didn't do very well, and I didn't like it very much. So I kind of was working with my folks. We had a bookstore, at the time, and we had there was a lady who used to write a column for the Telegram, Elizabeth Darcy. She used to write a food column for the Telegram, and she used to come in and buy the Globe and Mail, because at that time you couldn't get the Globe and Mail everywhere, and we were one of the places that had it. Anyways, we struck up a conversation, and I always liked food, and my mom was a great cook. He's a great cook, and so she said. She just put the idea in my head that I should go to cooking school, and that was really how I decided to do it. And I was in my early 20s then. I was a bit late coming to it. I was about the age of the chef de cuisine at my restaurant. He basically runs our restaurant now, and that was the age I was when I started cooking school. So I was a bit of a late bloomer when it comes to this industry, but it's 20 plus years now. So
amazing. So this really, you drew inspiration and passion from reading her column.
Yeah, and meeting the lady more than anything. She'd come in every day and pick up the paper, and we'd have a chat and stuff. She was a lovely lady, and yeah, so it was just, again, I was an avid eater, an avid cooker, cook at home, and again, I grew up in a house like lots of people were, eating, and my mom made everything from scratch. Wasn't much prepared food in our house. It was all homemade, everything, and so it was part of our family life. So it was just something that was fun, and then that I enjoyed, and tried to, decided to make a career out of it, and thank goodness I did.
Mm-hmm. So what is it exactly about being a chef or being in a kitchen and cooking that you, I guess, enjoy most? Because like any, like any career, any job, there are different aspects to it.
Yeah, I think for me, the variety of what you can do is very attractive. It's so busy and so much action and so much going on. It's not boring. And if it's boring, you have the ability to make it not boring really quickly. Especially, when you're in the fortunate position as I am to be an owner of a restaurant. Basically we can do whatever we want. So that's a tremendous feeling, and as cooks, a lot of people have that autonomy in their workplaces and stuff. It's a very self-directed kind of industry, can be, if you're in the right environment and stuff. So, it took me a long time to get to you know, the point that we got to when we got Mallard Cottage open. We had a restaurant before, but, you know, years ago, but it wasn't the same quite as Mallard Cottage. And you know, it's a tough business, and there's a lot of downsides to working in the cooking industry. And, you know, I've had a lot of jobs that I hated, and, you know, I didn't like them, and was, you know, woke up every morning hating to go to work. But once you push through all that stuff and you get yourself in a position where you can, you know, open your own place or run a place or whatever, then it becomes a tremendously rewarding way to make a living. You know, it's instant gratification. You know, you get this, you know, every time you serve a plate of food, you get instant feedback from people and stuff. You know, it's not like writing a report and sending it up the chain. You don't know if anybody read it even, you know. So with us, we get lots of feedback, not always good, but you know, it's a double-edged sword. You know, you take the good with the bad. So I don't know, I just love everything about it. I love you know, how hands-on it is. I love that, you know, there's a huge business aspect of it. You know, you have to be smart, you have to think on your feet. It's just it's a very varied trade, so it keeps me interested. So I'm really happy that I stuck with it as long as I did.
You mentioned about the restaurant previous to Mallard Cottage, and,
Yep.
and you traveled as well. You
Yep.
worked away
Yep.
and outside of the country. You know, what was it that, did you always know that you wanted to come back here and I guess, you know, plant your roots here?
I wouldn't say I wouldn't say that I necessarily always longed to come back to Newfoundland. Once I started traveling, you know, I wasn't aiming necessarily to move back to Newfoundland. I came home ironically for a job. You know, wasn't that many kind of great jobs in the restaurant industry, you know, in the late 90s in St. John's. But as luck would have it, there was a new restaurant that opened at that time called Nagira's, who Jonathan Gouju was the chef there, who's a Newfoundlander who has been, you know, running great kitchens around Canada for years. And so Johnny was opening up Nagira's with Lynn Pike, the owner, and there was an opportunity there. So I came home for that job, and then once I got here, then kind of, you know, life took over, and I stayed. So yeah, it's. But I didn't, you know, I came very close to staying in Switzerland where I was, you know, but yeah, the opportunity popped up and came home.
I want to go back about 5 or 6 years ago. You auditioned for Top Chef Canada, and you were a contestant
Yep.
on that show. And that's when we had you last, actually, here on Out of the Fog. What would you say that experience gave you competing in that particular show?
Well,
I mean, that was the first season.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think of all the people that were on that show, I probably benefited more than anybody, because pretty much all the people that people know from that show were in pretty well-established restaurants, and you know, their career was in front of them and set and whatnot. When I did that show, I hadn't worked in a restaurant for a number of years. You know, we were running a bed and breakfast, and kind of I was more home with my family and stuff like that. But doing the show kind of relit my fire to get back in the industry and get back. And you know, Mallard Cottage wouldn't be there if I hadn't have done Top Chef. It wasn't on the radar. It wasn't something I was thinking about doing or whatever. But doing the show really was the kind of the catalyst to make me want to pursue what ultimately became Mallard Cottage. So it changed my life. It changed my life like dramatically. It made a huge impact on the last 5 years, and you know, the rest of my life will always be different now because of what I did there.
When you came back from that show, I remember it was almost like you were an instant star at home from being on that show. I know you kind of, you know, what was that like for you at that moment? I
mean, you know, it's fun. It's fun to be recognized, and you know, being on TV is a laugh. I mean, you know, like the whole reason I did the show was that for that. It was just, you know, I just said, well, this seems like it'd be a fun thing to do, so why not, you know? So yeah, I mean, it's given me a certain notoriety, and you know, things that have happened since, you know. So it's a fun thing. I mean, again, you know, always being recognized and stuff like that. You know, in some places it's not always all it's cracked up to be, but I mean, you know, in terms of celebrity, you know, I'm very, very, very small C. So it's not a torment in my life. I'm no Alan Harko, that's for sure.
I don't know. You're pretty good there. You're pretty good. You know, so you went on, and then obviously you and your partners, your wife, and Stephen Lee, you bought Mallard Cottage, and so that was a huge project, just the restoration alone.
Yep.
So that obviously took a while to put together. When you look at what you've accomplished today, I mean, what kind of comes into your mind?
I mean, it's hard for me to talk about it without getting emotional. Like for me, honestly, it's the realization of a dream, you know, and it's it really is that. And you know, it's I don't treat it as a job or a workplace. You know, it's something that I always wanted, and I was in a fortunate position to have people around me that helped me make it happen, and you know, the people that continue to help me make it happen every day. So I'm super lucky and fortunate, and most people don't get to do what I've gotten to do, especially in my business. So you know, I don't take that for granted at all, and it's it means everything to me. So it's yeah.
Yeah. No, and I you know, I appreciate that emotion. Obviously, there's a lot of, you know, blood, sweat, and tears that goes into something like that. And I've been down to Mallard a number of times, and just recently see you know, you're working in the garden as the restaurant is open. You put a lot of work, and you're very hands-on when it comes to Mallard Cottage. But why is it that that's the way it seems that you want it? You know, like.
I mean, I get it's, you know, it's. Two reasons, I guess. One is that's my personality. That's, you know, I try not to do things halfway. Like if I'm going to do something, I tend to jump into it and, you know, kind of damn the torpedoes and stuff. So there's that. And, you know, then kind of the pragmatic and, you know, I think smart business side is that it makes the restaurant better. Like people feel the emotion, they feel the connection, they feel how much work and effort we put in. Mm-hmm. And I think that translates into happy customers and happy staff and stuff. So, you know, it's not, you know, I don't, you know, work 16 hours a day because I love necessarily working 16 hours a day. I work 16 hours a day because that's what's required to keep the restaurant at the level that we want it to be at and to push it forward. Mm-hmm. And the fact that I don't mind working 16 hours a day and that I get to do it in an environment that I don't consider to be work is lucky, is a lucky accident for me. So you know, it's, you know, we try to make Mallard better every single day, and we've done that since we started the process, almost 5 years now since we bought the building and moved forward. And we don't rest on our laurels. We don't sit back. We always go forward, and that takes a lot of work and time and effort. And you know, we're happy to do it, and hopefully we'll keep doing it for a long time.
Mm-hmm. It seems like you're very true to who you are, you know, and who you see is really, you know, what you get. But when you look at, you know, when you think of the heritage and the culture of just the building alone, what, you know, you do in terms of the cuisine that you serve, is that very important to you, just to keep that alive, and especially for tourists and such coming through as well? Yeah,
I mean, again, you know, it's the philosophy of cooking locally is, you know, it's a philosophy, it's a belief in, you know, supporting local and all that kind of stuff. But again, it's smart business too, because we know what we can get. We know what's available. You know, we don't rely on trucks that are coming across the country, or we don't rely on the ferry system, or we don't rely on things that, you know, are out of our control. Like basically our farmers are, you know, within a gunshot of St. John's mostly, with the exception of a couple. And, you know, so it's easier way for us to prosecute our business. I think it is anyway. And then the idea of kind of, you know, serving Newfoundland food to Newfoundlanders and others in ways that maybe they haven't had it before, or just taking local ingredients and doing them in slightly more interesting or different ways it's a fun challenge for us, and you know, it's just what we like to do. So you know, there's a philosophy to it, but it's also, again, we think that it just is the sensible, smart thing to do. Like, why would I open a restaurant in Newfoundland and cook, you know, peppers from Chile? It doesn't make sense to me. So yeah, it's kind of both those things at the same time.
Right. You know, you mentioned obviously the gardening, everything local, you know, game meats, local seafoods. Do you find that, is there much competition, do you find, in terms of what you're doing, and when you look at all, you know, the big box or chain restaurants, do you find that people are really leaning towards more local and supporting local?
I think some people do, and I think some people don't. You know, like I think Mallard is when we started, you know, me and Stephen, you know, who are in the restaurant every day, we made a decision that we were going to do what we wanted to do the way we wanted to do it, and knowing that it wouldn't please everybody. You know, like it's And what we say is Mallard Cottage is not a gray area restaurant. People tend to really like it, or they don't like it at all. So we're happy with that. That's what we like. We like, you know, to have people who really believe in what we're doing and like what we're doing. And if you don't like it, then you have other options. So, you know, the people who support what we do are very strong supporters, and I mean, you know, almost fans really. Like, people really support the restaurant. Our good customers we consider them to be almost like our family, you know. So, but there's always room, and there's always going to be the big box and the, you know, those guys out there, and there's people that's what they want, you know. It's consistent, you know, what they're going to get and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, we don't really look at that as competition. It's a whole other kind of niche in the food business, right? So, I mean, I go to those places sometimes too, right? So it's, but it's just not the type of business that we wanted to be in, and you know, it's the type of thing that, you know, you do what you do, and hopefully people will come to you. So, you know, we keep moving forward on that basis.
Right. You've done so much when we talk about the restoration. You know, you've had a Southcott Award. You're now a National Historic Site in Canada. I mean, so much has happened within that short amount of time. But you know, as much positivity that you're bringing into Quidi Vidi and the community surrounding, you have been met with some resistance. Is that necessarily the residents there?
I mean, I think there's always people always have concerns about development, you know, and there's always questions that need to be answered and whatnot. I mean, we try hard in everything that we do to be, you know, good neighbors, and yeah, you know, there's been some issues with you know, with folks. I wouldn't say necessarily the residents. You know, there's a few people that are vocal about, you know, some of the things that we do, but you know, for the most part, our neighbors are all very supportive of what we're doing down there, and you know, they see what is going on in Quidi Vidi on a daily basis. You know, it's a gem in our city. I mean, it's full of people all the time, year round. There's people coming down just to drive around, stroll around, go for a bike ride, you know, and part of what we wanted to do was create another place and another reason to come down there, because it is such a beautiful place. And, you know, there's parking and traffic issues all over St. John's, even more so than ever now, and Quidi Vidi is no different. And you know, the traffic issues in Quidi Vidi are significant and have been there for a long time. They were there before Mallard Cottage was there. They were there before Quidi Vidi Brewery was there. And there are things that need to be dealt with. And I've been an advocate, and I've been talking about it for years, long before we opened the restaurant. And I've talked to City Hall and talked with my neighbors and talked with other people about what can be done. And to be honest with you, the city hasn't done anything. The city is not recognizing, they recognize the issue, but they haven't done one thing to do anything about the traffic in Quidi Vidi Village. So you know, it's something that, you know, we'll continue to work for. And to be honest with you, Aaron, I've been a believer that the things that we're doing and working on in Quidi Vidi are going to be a catalyst to actually solve these problems, because they have to be fixed. And you know, we're big believers in doing whatever it takes to make Quidi Vidi Village better for the residents, better for us, better for visitors, safer, and just overall to kind of make the place, you know, to make the place better. It's a beautiful, gorgeous place. I've been living down there for years, and you know, we got our business there, and we're working on a few other things. So it's, you know, it's we're super lucky to do it, and you know, we of all people don't want to do anything to take away from what is an amazing spot in all of our continent, let alone our city and our province. There's very few places in North America that have what Quidi Vidi Village has.
You're very passionate. You can see that coming through when it comes to Quidi Vidi, and obviously what you're doing and in helping to revitalize it and bring it back to life and make these changes. But it comes with frustration as well. Has there ever been a time when you've just said, that's enough, I'm looking to change?
That's a good question. I don't know that I've ever gotten to the point where I felt like throwing in the towel. Maybe, you know, once. I think, you know, Stephen and I were in a meeting one time, and you know, we both kind of looked at each other at a moment and was just like, what in the hell are we doing, you know? But we take those moments to fuel us, right? You know, my dad likes to say, if it was easy, everyone would be doing it, right? So it's just like, we think what we're doing is important. Mm-hmm. Not only for ourselves, but, you know, for the city. and for our province. And, you know, we employ a lot of people. We're going to employ more people. We consider ourselves to be good corporate citizens, and we consider ourselves to be some of the biggest champions for, you know, the East End of St. John's, Kitty Vitty, Newfoundland, you know, St. John's overall. So, you know, we take very seriously what we do. We're not just down there, you know, slinging eggs at people and you know, taking our money and going to Florida for the winter. Like, that's not what we're about, you know. So it's something that we, you know, believe in. And yes, we've had moments of frustration, and there are times when we look at each other and go, "What the hell are we doing?" But again, you know, that's just fuel to the fire, and you know, we got no intentions on slowing down.
I want to ask, you know, of course, the amazing cooking at Mallard Cottage. What do you cook when you're at home?
Not very much these days.
Working 16-hour days.
Yeah, not very much these days. But, you know, usually a bowl of cereal and a slice of toast. That's classic cook supper. But you know, obviously on the grill, something quick on the grill or whatever. I love cooking outside and cooking over wood and stuff. And anybody who's been to the restaurant knows that I spend as much time cooking outside in this time of year, especially, as I do inside. So yeah, anything like that. Something, you know, usually, you know, working in inside of a restaurant all day long, the last thing you want to do when you're going is eat. but yeah, something usually quick and easy and stuff. That's kind of what we tend to go towards. So.
Yeah. You know, when you're talking about working 16-hour days, and obviously there's a lot of time that goes into this, is it hard to balance, you know, when you think of work and then obviously your life, you know, your family and
yeah, it's a challenge. It's super tough, and you know, when you look at the restaurant industry the way that I do, it comes with a cost to your family. There's no question about that. But you know, it's not uncommon in our industry that, you know, we give up a lot to do what we do. Like lots of people are, you know, very directed in their career, and you know, their family life suffers. So yeah, we're no different. It's tough to strike the balance, you know, trying to find time, and not only for me, but you know, you have a busy spouse, you have busy kids. I mean, everyone is on schedules these days. I mean, you know, everyone has a Google Calendar that they're all sharing around and stuff like that. So you take the moments that, you know, you can when you get them, and you do the best that you can. But it is tough for sure. It's a real challenge in our industry.
When you look back over, you know, even the last 5 or 6 years, when things have really, like you said, you know, obviously being on the show kind of lit that fire for you, and then, you know, Mallard Cottage took off, and you have plans for more development down the road. But when you look back at throughout that time, is there anything at all that you would change or do differently?
Oh, wow.
It's a heavy question, I guess, but.
Yeah, you know, I don't think so. Like, you know, for the most part, I mean, there are things obviously that you know, there are downsides to kind of the last number of years and what's been going on in my work and stuff like that. But you know, like I said earlier, I'm living my dream. You know, so I mean, I can't complain about that. You know, I have all that I wanted, you know, in Mallard Cottage, and it turned out exactly like when I thought it up in my head. It turned out exactly like I wanted it, and you know, I get to work on it every day, you know. So it's you know, people you know, we all have dreams. Everybody has something that they look forward to, something that they desire, whatever. I was able to, you know, again, with the help of a lot of people, to actually see it realized. And not only did I get to see it realized, but I get to work on it every single day. And that's such a blessing that people just don't get. And I got to do it. I get to make my dream better every day if I want to, you know. So it's a super rewarding thing, and you know, I feel really fortunate.
Okay. Well, Todd, I'm going to leave it there. I want to thank you so much for coming in and joining me. This 30 minutes has certainly flown by, and I wish you all the best with all your future endeavors.
Thanks, Erin. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. We're going to take a very short break, but we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Welcome back to Out of the Fog. Well, I hope you enjoyed tonight's interview with chef and owner of Mallard Cottage, Todd Perrin. Now, to keep up to date with Todd and his various endeavors, you can follow him on Twitter. He's also on Facebook. And if you'd like to keep up to date with me and the show, and to find out information about upcoming guests, to see some behind-the-scenes pictures, you can follow us on Twitter at Out of the Fog TV or me at Erin Sully. And we're also on Facebook as well. Now, you can also check out our website, visit RogersTV.com, and make sure you tune into Rogers TV's YouTube page. There's lots of videos there for your viewing pleasure. No lack of ways to keep in touch with us here on Out of the Fog and Rogers TV. That's it for me this evening. Have a wonderful night, and we'll see you again soon. Same time, same place, right here on Rogers TV.